Hi everyone, this is Dr. Diana Songsong, and we will be discussing the last module in this course, Mathematics in Finances. So for the first part, we will be studying investing. Okay, so this is our problem. Suppose you have 100,000 pesos and you want to invest this amount for 1 year to maximize the interest earned while minimizing the risk of losing money. You went to the bank and you were presented with the following investment option. First, you will invest it in a savings account that earns 0.25% annually or in a time deposit account placed for 120 days that earns 0.3% annually. Or lastly, you will buy stocks worth 250 pesos per share at present. So let me ask you, where do you keep your money? Do you keep it in your house? You have a piggy bank, or do you put it in banks, or do you put it in other investments like stocks, bonds, or mutual funds? In this module, we will be talking about the following. First, we will discuss savings account, time deposit, stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. Okay, so let's first talk about savings. Savings account is an interest-bearing deposit account held at a bank or other financial institution. So oftentimes they come with ATM cards or they have passbooks also. Okay, but of course it is more convenient to have savings account with an ATM. Let us discuss the pros and cons of putting your money in savings account. The first one is that you have small initial balance. You don't have to put up millions just to open an account. Banks can let you start with at least 500 pesos. So it depends on the bank. So some banks will have an initial balance of 1,000, of 5,000. It all depends. Okay. The second one is that it has low maintaining balance. Again, depending on where you deposited your money, on what bank, it's usually the rule that you are allowed to have a small balance to keep without getting charged for any fee. So for example, in other banks, as long as your maintaining balance is 5,000 pesos, you will earn interest. The second one is that, of course, it is easy to open an account. Opening an account is relatively easy. Banks would usually just give you a set of instructions and a list of papers to prepare, and they are, of course, easy to secure. Okay, and then, of course, you have your safekeeping. Um, what it does is that you know that your money is safe. It cannot be stolen because if you put it inside your house, what if you get robbed, right? And also there are instances, I don't know if you watched this episode in KMJS, uh, there are people who just um, hid their money in their rooms and then kinain ng anay, or their house were on fire, and of course they were not able to, and then they have hundreds of thousands of pesos in their house, and then yun, wala na, all because they do not trust banks. Okay, the next pro is exchange. When you set aside money in a piggy bank for a very, very long time, chances are bills become retired and are no longer accepted in exchange for goods and services. The bank eliminates that problem by ensuring that you are only given current bills issued by the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. Okay? So I think that was, what year was it again? Wherein we already changed the bill. So if you have your old bills, you can no longer use that. Okay? Next, of course, is the access and availability. It's very easy to make a deposit and do a withdrawal as well because you have ATMs, you also have phone or online access, and you have a small interest. It may be modest for some, but at least it gains an actual interest. Okay, and also your money is insured because the Philippine Deposit Insurance Company insures all your money up to 500,000 pesos. So that means that if the bank goes bankrupt, up to 500,000 pesos, you can still claim your money. That is, of course, if you have the maximum is 500,000 pesos. Okay. But for example, you deposited your money in a bank and then the total amount is 1 million, you can only get 500,000 if the bank gets bankrupt. Okay. And also you have lots of bank services. What are examples of bank services? You can use your ATM card to purchase items in the grocery or in malls, in department stores, and also your money is not locked in for any period of time. Okay, meaning to say you can always get your money anytime. All right, so those are some of the pros. I mean, let's now go to the cons. Yeah, I said that there's no lock-in period. Okay, let's now go to the disadvantages of putting your money in savings account. The first one is you have a minimum balance requirement. Most savings accounts have minimum balance requirements or monthly maintenance fees. If your savings account falls below the minimum balance requirement, the bank will deduct fees from your account, negating from interest you earn. And take note that these fees are actually um, it's not cheap. Okay, so for example, in BPI, if you fall below minimum balance, you will have a charge of 250 pesos. 250 pesos, pero yung money mo, you only get 0.25%. So it's really a disadvantage to you. So let's just look at that. Let's say you have 10,000. Okay? But this means that you get 0.25% pero that's annually pa. Okay, that's annually, meaning to say after 1 year, how much will you get? 25% of 10,000 is 250 pesos, right? Pero on the first month of the second year, your maintaining balance fell below the minimum. Let's say, nag-fall ka sa 2,000. So, nag-below ka na. Okay? So, regardless, the bank will deduct 250 pesos. So, see, yung tagal-tagal mo na hinintay na 1 year to get 250 pesos from the bank in just one click, 1 month, you lose already 250 pesos. Okay? What if what if your interest pa nga is lower than 250? Okay, and then you get a deduction of 250 pesos. Lugi ka pa. Alright? Next. Again, you only have low interest rate. Just like in this example here, 0.25% lang yung interest. So it's really, really small as compared to other types of investment like time deposits, mutual funds, okay? What else? You also have limits in daily withdrawal. So most banks, you can only withdraw up to 20,000. Okay, if you want to withdraw more than 20,000, you have to line up in the counter, okay? Or what if it's already late at night and you need more than 20 pesos? You have to wait the following day so that you can withdraw from your account. Next is that, of course, rates are subject to change. Alright? So there's every day yan, nagbabago yung kanina. Not, basta it's very volatile. Alright? And then take note that I listed here access and availability. Um, Here, I said earlier that it's a pro because you can always get your money through ATMs, but you can also think of it as a disadvantage because there is just too much temptation. Because it's easy to withdraw, it is a bit difficult to save money in long term. All right? Next is, of course, your inflation. Because of the small interest and there's inflation, so what happens is that if your interest is only 0.25%, pero in 1 year, there is an inflation of 10%. So, lugi ka pa. Tama? Meaning to say, although your money had a little interest, pero that value of money is lower than its the value kasi nga because of inflation. So here are the requirements for opening an account, a savings account in BDO. So you need a minimum initial deposit of 2,000. And average daily balance is 2,000 pesos. We will talk about this one later. It's just saying that if you fall below the monthly average daily balance, then the bank will deduct money from you. Okay, so for example, 250 pesos. And then minimum balance to earn interest is 5,000 pesos. So again, it's self-explanatory. If your balance is less than 5,000, the 0.25% interest, it cannot be applied to you. All right? Let us compute average daily balance. So for example, I have the following transactions. So suppose on March 1, wait, okay. So on March 1, you opened an account, so you deposited 2,000. So your balance is 2,000. And then on March 7, you withdraw 1,000. So that means your balance is now 1,000. But on March 20, you deposited 1,500. So your balance is now 2,500. So question, did you fall below the monthly average daily balance? So how do you compute that? Okay. So on March 1 to 6, your balance it was 2,000. How many days was that? March 1 to 6. That's 6 days, right? 6 minus 1 plus 1. You always add 1 because you include this one, right? Anyway, next, on March 7 to 20, your balance, oops, this one should be 19, right? You withdrew 1,000, so your balance is 1,000. And how many days was that? 19 minus 7 plus 1. Correct. So that is 13. And then your balance of 25, that was for how many days? 31 minus 20 plus 1 is 12. So as you can see, when I add up the number of days, it will really add up to 31. Now, what you need to do is to multiply days times balance. All right? So 2,000 times 6 is 12,000. 1,000 times 13 is 13,000. And 25,000, I mean 25 times 12 is 30,000. And then you get this sum. What is that? 30 plus 25. So that's 55,000. What you need to do is to divide, 55,000 with the number of days. So let's compute. 55,000 divided by 31. You get 1,774.193, which is less than 2,000. So this means that you will be charged, let's say 250 pesos for having a balance, having a monthly average daily balance less than the requirement, which is 2,000. Okay? Here are the requirements for opening an account in BPI. Let's look at, for example, this one. The one which comes with an ATM card is Express Teller Savings. So the initial deposit is a bit bigger than that of BDO. And the minimum, the MADB also is bigger than BDO because this one is 3,000. Although they have the same uh, required daily balance to earn interest, 5,000, but the interest is 0.125%. Okay? Now, for the other accounts like the BPI Advanced Savings Account with Passbook, although the interest is bigger, right? 0.75% and 1.125%, but it requires a bigger amount of deposit. So in this case, you need 100,000 and you can only avail the 1.125% if you invested 1 million and above. Okay? There are two kinds of interest that we will be talking about, the simple interest and the compound interest. What is simple interest? Simple interest is one wherein the interest rate is fixed. Take note of that. Fixed over a period of time. Whereas for the compound interest, you get the interest not only on the principal, but also on the interest earned in the prior period. I will illustrate the differences between these two interests in the next slide. All right, so let's have this one. I have here an Excel sheet to show you the difference between the two kinds of interest. So suppose I have on year zero at present, I invested 1,000 pesos with an interest of, let me write it here, my interest is 10%. Okay, all right. 10% interest. Now, what will be my interest income on the first year? This means that I will get 10% of 1,000, right? So that's, don't mind this. Okay. So that means I have 100,000. pesos. Meaning to say, on year 1, how much is my money now? My principal amount, which is 1,000, plus my interest, which is 100 pesos. So that means I get 1,100. What will happen on year 2? What will be my interest? Since we are talking about simple interest, I only get interest on my principal amount or the original amount invested, this one, 1,000. So that means for all of these years, let's say I will keep my money there for 30 years. My interest every year is always equal to 100 pesos. Okay, just to make sure that it will stay at C4, you put dollar sign there so that when you drag, okay, see? It's always C4, this one. It's always getting zero point 0.1 times 1%. I mean zero point 0.1 of 1,000. Because if you remove the dollar sign there, wait, here. If I remove the dollar sign here, and then when I drag, see? It's different. Why? Bumaba din yung value. It became C4. Here, it became C6. Right? So, if you want to keep that fixed, so you put a dollar. You put the letter in between dollar sign. Okay? So, my point is, every year, year in and year out, you get an interest of 100 pesos. So, what is the current value? My current value is, again, I will just show one more example. On year 2, my current value is now my balance in year 1 plus interest here, right? So that's 1, 2. And then I can just drag, see? So again, what is this saying? 1, 3 is 1, 2 plus 100. So you get 1, 3. And then 1, 4 is 1, 3, the previous balance plus 100 pesos, the interest. Okay? So let's just drag. Okay? So meaning to say, after 30 years, take note that's 30 years, your 1,000 will become 4,000. And your total interest is, of course, it's just 30 times 100. So you know that you will get 3,000. Right? But just so that you can see it, there. Your total interest is 3,000. What about for compound interest? Suppose I also deposited 1,000, but this time I will invest it in a bank which gives 10% interest. Well, in real life, all banks use compound interest, okay? Anyway, so for the first year, you will get 10% of 1,000. Okay? Don't mind that. Okay, that's 100 pesos. So, similarly, just like on the simple interest, your current value is your, okay, so your balance at the end of year 1 is equal to your previous balance plus, of course, the interest that you earn. Okay? What will happen on year 2? Now, let's look at what happened in simple interest. On year 2, your interest is still 100 pesos because you keep on getting, oops, you keep on getting the, this one is C. Okay. You keep on getting the 10% of your principal amount, which is 1,000, right? Wait, let me just put it down. Okay? Anyway, whereas here, for year 2, you will now get the 10% of what? Of your current balance. Okay, so as you can see there, your new interest is now 110. Your present, your amount the money that you have now at the end of year 2 is your previous balance plus the interest that you earn, which is 1,200. So dito pa lang, you can see that you already gained 10 pesos more in compound interest than in simple interest. Now, take note that for compound interest, okay, what will I do? I will just drag that up to year 30. Oh, so what happened there? How come I used to drag it down? Because remember here for year 3, look at that. We're getting 10% of the previous balance, right? Which is 1,210. And then here, this is what? Previous balance plus interest. Is that clear? So as you can see here, your interest also gets higher and higher as compared with your simple interest. Because for compound interest, you are getting also the interest of the interest that you earned in the previous year. Is that clear? All right, so as you can see here now, let us get the total interest over 30 years. So that's now big. 16,449.40 as compared with your simple interest. Actually, you can see that here at the end of year 30, your 1,000 will now become 17,449.40. It's like times 4, more than times 4 of your money in simple interest. Okay? Okay, so I have here the interests for simple and compound. What we will do is we will make a graph to compare. Let me just highlight what I want to appear. And then insert charts. This one stacked line. Okay, there you go. So now, right. So can you see there's our chart. So if you can, here, I'll just drag that there. So as you can see, so for the blue, that's simple, and then for the orange, that's compound. So as you can see, for the compound interest, the interest earned is exponential, right? So it's nice. Whereas for the interest, of course, we know that every year it's just equal to 100 pesos. So actually, it was Albert Einstein who said that the most powerful tool in the world is compound interest. All right. Okay, so here are the formulas for getting interest in simple interest and compound interest. So let's first start with simple interest. So first, the interest for simple interest is given by interest is equal to the principal amount times the rate times the time. So just like in our previous example, right? So if you have 1,000, you invested at 10%, so times 0.1. Okay, remember that rate should always be in decimal form. And then time is the number of years. So after 30 years, okay, so what was our total interest? Our interest was 3,000, right? And what is the future value F? What is the meaning of the future value? That means the the money that you have at the end of, let's say in our case, 30 years. How do you get that? That's equal, of course, to your principal plus interest. So in our previous example, our principal amount was 1,000 and then our interest was 3,000. So in our Excel file, our money will be equal to 4,000 at the end of 30 years. Okay, now take note that where did this come from? F equals principal times 1 plus RT. Now, if you will look at F or future value, which is P plus I, wait, P plus I just substituted I, which is PRT. And then I factored out P. So what will be left? This is 1 plus RT. Understand? Okay, for compound interest, what's happening is that the future value is equal to your principal amount times 1 plus the rate per period. I will talk about that in the next few slides. Raised to the number of periods n. This is the simpler. So can you see the difference? All right. For the moment, we will just assume that, just to make things easier, is that the number of one period is equal to 1 year. This is just for the first few examples, but there are examples, of course, wherein one period is 1 day, 1 month, and so on. But just so that it will be simpler, this is the formula for the compound interest. Okay? Alright, so let's look at this problem. What is the maturity value of 40,000 invested at 0.25% per annum for 150 days? So by default, if it is less than 1 year, the bank rule is we will use simple interest. What is the formula? First, we can just get the interest. What is the interest? It's equal to PRT. But T is in number of years, right? But what happens here? It's less than 1 year. So what is 150 days in terms of years? So that's 150 over 365 days, right? So it depends on banks. Other banks use over 360. So meaning to say they are assuming just 30 days per month and then 30 times 12. That's why it's um 360 days. So anyway, so our principal is 40,000 times the rate, and the rate should be in decimal form, times time, which is 150 over 365. So when we use our calculator, what is that equal to? Wait, 40,000 times 0.25 times 150 over 365. So you get 4,109.58. But the question is maturity value. That is the same as the future value. So that's 40,000 plus 4,109.58. So that's 44,109.58. All right. Or if you want, you can go directly to the formula. Let me just erase this. That's the first method. Or if you want, since it's just asking for the maturity value, you can also have use the formula P times 1 plus RT. So that's 40,000 times 1 plus 0.25 times 150 over 365. You should still get 44,109.58. Okay? This one, if 15,500 is invested at 7%, again, you have simple interest for 3 years. Determine the interest earned in its maturity value. All right. So let's compute the interest. PRT. My principal amount is 15,500. My rate is 7%. So that's 0.007 times T in years is 3. So what is that? 15,000 times 0.07 times 3, you get 3,150. So therefore, its maturity value F is 15,500 plus 3,150. So that's 18,650. Okay? Let us now consider this problem. Suppose 10,000 is invested 3% compounded annually for 5 years. What is the maturity value? Alright, so it's just saying that the rate is 3%, 0.03. Principal amount is 10,000. What is our formula for the maturity value or future value? That's principal times 1 plus r raised to n. Alright, so we will just plug in the values. So F is 10,000 times 1 plus 0.03 raised to the number of periods is 5 years. So when we use our calculator, what will it give us? 1.03 raised to 5 times 10,000. You will end up with 10,150.9T. Alright, so that's the answer. But if the question is, what is the interest? What is the interest that we earn? So it's 10,150.90 minus the principal, right? So you earned 150 pesos and 90 centavos. Next example. Suppose that you put 280,000 in a bank which gives you 0.75% interest. If you leave that 280,000 in the bank for an entire year, how much interest will you earn at the end of the year? Now, take note here that it doesn't say whether it's compound or simple. However, since we're just getting 1 year, we see that at the end of 1 year, it doesn't really matter if it's simple or compound. You will still get the same interest, right? So the point is the interest is 75%. Oops, so that's 0.75, 0.0. Wait, let me just change that. My rate is 0.075, that's my rate, times 280,000. Correct? And our calculator will give us times 0.0075. We get 2,100. Okay. Now let's go to examples wherein the interest is no longer compounded annually, but we have semi-annually, quarterly, and monthly. So what does it mean? For example, I say that I have 3% compounded semi-annually. Compounded semi-annually. That means that this is 1 year, 0, 1 year. That means you will compound the interest. Semi means twice. So this is 6 months. Now, how many periods do we have? The number of periods here is 2. But what will be the interest per period? The interest per period here, or R, will be equal to 3% but divided by 2. So that means every 6 months, the interest is actually 1.5%. Is that clear? What is the meaning of 3% compounded quarterly? So that also means every, let's say this is 0, this is 1 year. Oops, I'm sorry. It should be here. You will do the compounding for times. But what will be the rate here? 3% divided by 4 or 0.75% per period. Understand? And similarly, if it's monthly, you will do it 12 times. Okay, so this here is 12 times. And what is the rate per period? The rate per period is 3% divided by 12. And then again, you will still use, that's why I used P times 1 plus R raised to N, where R is the rate per period. Is that clear? And N is the number of periods. Clear? Okay. What I have over here is an alternative formula for the future value of a certain amount after t years. Now, the only difference here is that, look at this, my R here is the rate per year, and then look at this R over N. This is still the rate per period. Correct. And MT here, it says M is the number of times that the interest is computed per year. Now, MT is still the number of periods. So, for example, you have, let's go back, 3% compounded semi-annually. It's principal times 1 plus my rate per period is 1.5%, right? Per 6 months. So that's 0.015 raised to, let's say, for 10 years. What is the number of periods? 10 years, but for every year you have 2 periods. Is that clear? Let us go back again to that 280,000 invested in a bank with 0.75% interest. But the only difference here is that interest is now compounded daily. How much money would be in our account? So let's compute for the future value. The formula is given by this. Our principal amount is 28,000 times 1 plus, this is 0.75%, but in decimal form. The number of periods is 365. And then 365 times 1. So when you use your calculator, you will end up with 28,000, wait, 282,107.87. So meaning to say, our interest is 2,000 107.87. Okay, so I have here the summary of what we did in the two problems. If you have compounding annually, this one, the 0.75%, here we saw that the interest was 2,100. Whereas if it's compounded daily, you get more interest. So it's good um, if you will invest money in something wherein the number of periods per year is greater. Okay? Now, let's look at this example. Assuming an interest rate of 1.5% per annum, a monthly compounding period in the following information for one month, find the amount of interest that would be credited to the client account at the end of the month. So what do we do now with this average daily balance? So what you will do is, how do you compute the interest? You use PRT. This is the bank rule. It's like you have simple interest, right? This is the formula for simple interest. So you get your ADB times your rate, which is 1.5% or 0.015. But what is your time? The time is, it's less than 1 year. So in this case, number of days, 31 over 365. And you will end up with 1,728.70. Alright, so we have already calculated the interest. However, is that the end? No, because although your bank will give you an interest, but what will happen is that it will withhold tax. And what is the withholding tax? It says it will get taxed for the interest earned. So whatever the interest that you earn, the bank will still get tw- will not it's not that the bank will get it. Actually, it's the government. It's just that the bank will deduct 20% of the interest that you earn. Okay? So for example, here I have a sample copy of a passbook. Okay. If you can see here, this is the interest, 6.68, right? Now, what that is credited to the account? It was added, right? But where did this 1.34 come from? It is actually, wait, I should write it down. So this is interest earned, but this one is actually the withholding tax, 20% of interest. So let's compute. Let's try 20% of 6.68. So zero point 0.2 times 6.68. What do we get? There, you get 1.336. So that's why you have your 1.34 here. Understand? So that is your withholding tax. As promised, the next thing that we will discuss will be time. Okay, so what are time deposits? So first property is that it has a fixed period of time for an interest rate higher than savings account. So remember that with savings account, you can withdraw your money anytime, right? And there's no charge for that, except that you have to maintain your maintaining balance. However, for time deposits, you have to put your money there for a certain period of time. And in return, the bank will give you a higher rate of interest. And take note that early termination will result in penalty. As I have mentioned again, you should put your money there for a certain period of time. So that time can either be 30 days, 60 days, 90, 120, and then 6 months or 1 year. So again, there are many time deposits. Some time deposits can last for 5 years. Okay, and just like with savings account, it is also covered by PDIC, Philippine Deposit Insurance Corporation, up to 500,000. All right. What will you do when your time deposit matures? First option is you can just withdraw both the principal amount and the interest. Okay. The second option is to just take your earnings or the interest income and then you reinvest again your principal. The last option is to reinvest both the original amount and the additional income and roll it over for the same term. So meaning to say you will not get anything at all. You will just reinvest your accumulated money. All right. What are the pros and cons of investing your money in a time deposit? So first, an advantage of that is that you have fixed rate until maturity. So you are promised. So for example, it says that you have a time deposit which pays 4% per annum or per year. Regardless of what happens to the economy, you will always get 4%. Unlike with savings account, the rate it can fall. All right, it depends on the economy. Second, of course, as I have mentioned earlier, it is also insured, just like the savings account, and you can also choose from various maturity dates and minimum deposit amount. So it depends on your type of personality or on your goal, how long do you intend to keep your money there and how much money lang you can afford to put in time deposit. Now, a disadvantage of of investing your money in time deposits is fixed rate maturity. So, as you can observe here, it is actually a pro and a con. Why is that? This can be an advantage if the rates will fall. For example, just like now, we're currently experiencing pandemic. So let's say you already got a time deposit, let's say 2 years ago, wherein the rate was 4% per annum. Now, if you look at time deposits, the rate will just be around 1.16%. So this is an advantage for you because whatever happens, you always get your 4%. But what if the economy starts to improve? Let's say that the economy improved so much that the current the current interest for time deposit is now 6%. So, you have a loss here because instead of getting 6%, you are only getting 4%. That's why having a fixed rate is both an advantage and a disadvantage. All right? Next, although for time deposit, it has a higher rate of interest as compared with savings account, still the rates are lower than other conservative investment opportunities that in this we will discuss in the next videos. And of course, I already mentioned this that early withdrawal results in penalty charge, unlike your savings account wherein you do not get penalty if you withdraw your money. All right, let's look at this example. Suppose you have 100,000 and you deposit it in a time deposit that earns 2% per annum. We'll let it stay for 32 days. Considering the 20% withholding tax charged to peso time deposits, how much is your interest income? Now, we are just using the bank rule, right? So it's PRT as long as it's less than 1 year. So what is that? You have 100,000, your rate is 2%, and then your time is 32 over 365. Okay? But take note that this is the amount that you will get. That's the interest. But remember that you still have 20% withholding tax. What does it mean? If the bank will deduct 20% withholding tax, that means that you will only get 80%. 80%. Is that clear? So that's why here, for the final answer, I still have to multiply it by zero point 0.8. So this is after the, so again, this is my PRT. And this is after withholding tax. Okay? Hence, you will only get 140 pesos and 27 centavos. See, it's very small, right? You invested 100,000, yet after a month, you only get 140 pesos and 27 centavos. All right? Okay, next problem. An individual has 500,000 and is looking around for a bank where he can leave his money for 6 months so it can earn interest via time deposit. Help him complete the following table so he can choose which bank to choose. All right. So here we're given the interest rates. At first glance, it looks like PBI Direct is the one which gives the highest interest rate. Oh, however, they differ in the divisor here when you compute your PRT. So let's see which one will give him the highest interest. All right, so I have here the data that was given to us. So we will compute for the interest. That is P, that's 500,000. P times R. Okay. Take note that this is just, anyway, times P rate times time. What is your time? 181 over the divisor. There you go. Take note here that I'm not actually using 2.25%. It's just in percentage, but when Excel computes that, it's actually in decimal form. I just wrote it in percentage, but if it's in general. Okay, it's really 0.00225. I just wrote it in percentage. And of course, don't forget to always start your formula by the equal sign. Okay? I am now here at imoney.ph slash time dash deposit. So here you can see the different time deposits available and their interest rate. So it depends how many months you want to invest your money. So for example, you just want to invest it for 3 months and you only have 10,000. So these are the banks that have time deposits whose minimum deposit is just 10,000. Okay? So suppose you want to have, so see, uh, the interest rate, it's still small. 0.25% and then 0.38, right? So it's just a little bit higher than savings account. All right. What else? Suppose I want to make it bigger. Let's make it 50,000 there. Actually, this is not minimum deposit is not 1,000. I checked it. I think there is just a typo. And then also here you can see your investment returns or your interest income. All right. So if that's the case, it's better to choose which one gives the oh, it's actually in descending order. So the first one will give you the oh no, actually this one, it's not in descending order. This one. It gives you 1% interest rate. Okay.